I'm not going to lie, expectations for the new Superman film were fairly low. The trailers didn't really do that much for me. I still wasn't ready to let go of Henry Cavill as the Man of Steel, but I'm happy to say those low expectations were surpassed with James Gunn's new Superman. Written and directed by James Gunn of Guardians of the Galaxy fame, Superman stars David Corenswet as the Man of Steel, Clark Kent Kal-El, aka Superman. The movie opens with some expositional text that takes care of both Superman's origin on Earth as well as metahumans and general, so it gets that stuff out of the way. It doesn't retell the origin story, it just hits the ground running, and Superman exists, the world knows about him, and off we go. The movie literally starts mid-battle. And off we go. Plot-wise, you've got Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor and his plan to take care of Superman with the help of his two super-powered goons. There's an ongoing plot thread about a fictional country invading another fictional country and whether or not Superman should or should not be involved, and what does this mean for the US government and Superman, etc. Clark and Lois played by Rachel Brosnahan, I think. They're dating in secret, but she knows he's Superman. The Justice Gang exist in this universe in Metropolis. There's Green Lantern, Hawkgirl and Mr. Terrific. They're staples of everyday life in Metropolis. Throw all of that together and you've got the new Superman movie. But is it any good? Script-wise, it's a little bit on the nose at times, especially in the first act. There is some heavy expositional dialogue that some characters have to say with a straight face, and that's a bit off-putting in the first act. David Corenswet really makes the role his own. I have to say he is very, very good as Superman, as Clark Kent. There's a shot towards the end of the movie, I think it's either mid-battle or just post-battle, but yeah, the costume, the framing, the pose, the lighting, everything about it, I saw that shot and I thought, woof, that goddamn, he is Superman. So he really does make the role his own. The scene in the trailer where Lois is interviewing Clark/Superman, for me that was actually the best scene in the movie, even though a fair chunk of that scene is in the trailer. When you see the full scene in context in the movie, it's so well written, it's so well acted, it kind of encapsulates what I think this Superman was trying to go for on a slightly deeper level. So that worked really well. I really did enjoy that interplay and what that scene meant for the story and for the characters. But yeah, let me know in the comments below, what did you guys think of David Corenswet as Superman? Nicholas Hoult as Lex, not as high on him as I am towards Corenswet's Superman. I think Hoult was given some clunky dialogue to play with, as I touched on earlier. His Lex just at times felt like he was in a slightly different movie than everyone else, a little bit too cartoonish maybe. Can't quite put my finger on it, but something just didn't quite click with Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor for me. Now don't get me wrong, I think Nicholas Hoult is a great actor. His Lex in this, something just felt a little bit off for me. Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane, I quite liked her portrayal as Lois. She was, I would say, maybe a little bit less naive than previous Lois Lane. She seemed more switched on. I like the fact that she already knows that Clark is Superman when this movie starts, so you can have, as much as some of that interplay when Lois doesn't know about Clark can be quite fun, I like that this movie just starts when they already know, so they're not dealing with that baggage, for lack of a better phrase. But yeah, I quite liked what Rachel Brosnahan did with her Lois. Let's see what else. The Superman suit. A couple of years ago, when I did a video with Andy, the Electric Geek, I'll link to that below, when we were talking about the movie news that week, one of the things we touched upon was the Superman suit. When the first official images were released of the Superman suit, I wasn't that keen on it, to be honest. Again, maybe I was a little bit too hung up on Henry Cavill's Man of Steel. But when you watch this movie, the suit totally works for this movie. I didn't think there wasn't one point in this movie where I looked at the suit and thought, ooh, I don't like that. Once you accept the tone of this movie, everything else just kind of like falls into place and follows suit. Follows suit, I didn't even mean that, or did I? The score. If you've watched a few of my videos already, you'll know that I'm a huge movie scores fan. In fact, I've got the Superman, the John Williams Superman vinyl record there. I'm a huge fan of Hans Zimmer's Man of Steel score as well. Junkie XL, Tom Holkenborg's score for Zack Snyder's Justice League. Yeah, I'm a huge movie scores fan. So it takes a lot for me to not enjoy a movie score. And I really enjoyed John Murphy's take on Superman. He does a great job of paying respect to the John Williams original, but also making something of his own. Even from the trailers, I remember really clicking with the music. I think the first teaser trailer they had, or the first motion poster that they had for this movie, they just had that kind of choiry orchestral tone piece, and then the actual trailer had the kind of the reworking of the John Williams score, but with the electric guitar. Yeah. Everything about this score I loved. Big fan of John Murphy's work on this. John Murphy's worked with James Gunn, I think, on 2 of the previous Guardians movies. I'm not sure if he did the Suicide Squad as well. But yeah, John Murphy did a great job on this, and I think he worked with someone else whose name escapes me, but I'll flash it up on screen here. He deserves the credit as well, I believe. Big fan of the score for James Gunn Superman. And speaking of being big fans, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Thank you very much. That would be Superman. Tonally, this one skews quite heavily on the lighter side, I would say. I wouldn't say it's a kids movie, but it's definitely more kid friendly than the previous iteration, than Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. Crypto the dog, for example, very kid friendly element of the movie. Dog lovers will love this element of the movie. I didn't love it that much, I'm going to be honest. I think they went back to that particular well a little bit too often. Crypto the super dog gets a lot of screen time in this movie. Too much, I would say, but the kids really seem to enjoy that, so, you know, I'm not saying that that's a cynical cash grab to sell crypto teddies, but so on the one hand, the movie does seem to cater for and aim for a fairly young audience, I feel, but on the other hand, the geopolitical element was quite well done and quite well written. As I touched on earlier, the interview scene between Lois and Clark, that's definitely not something you would expect to see in an out-and-out kids movie. So there's a fine line between those two elements, those two kind of tones of the movie, and I think James Gunn does a pretty decent job of managing that tone, or those tones, throughout the full runtime of the movie. Cinematography wise, this is it's a very bright and colourful movie. It can be a little bit CGI heavy at times. I mean, it's a modern superhero movie, so you're not going to have no CGI in it, but some of the scenes do feel like it's just 2 CGI characters battling it out, a little bit video game-esque, but not too bad. It's not overly distracting for the most part. Some of the flying scenes, with that close-up wide-angle lens that like distorts your face and, you know, makes your nose big and, you know, your face look a little bit weird. I think that's a stylistic choice. I think James Gunn likes to use those lenses, kind of the close-up wide lens and swinging the camera around. I know he did it in a couple of the Guardians movies, and I'm sure there's a scene in the Suicide Squad that's very much, it's almost like a signature James Gunn sequence, I would say. I know the trailer took a little bit of flack for that when it came to the close-up of David Corenswet's face. That wasn't distracting, I don't think. That's just the way that lens looks, and it definitely gave definitely gave the flying scenes a little bit of a different feel in this movie, at least. So, you know, it's not bad, but it is different. It's fairly well paced. It clocks in at, I think, 2 hours and 9 minutes, so if you take away the credits, that's probably a sub 2 hour superhero movie, and in this day and age, that is a very, very welcome change of pace. Not every movie needs to be a 2.5 to 3 hour epic. It's perfectly okay to have a 90-minute to 2 hour superhero movie. In fact, I would say it's more than welcome. Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room, an elephant in the shape of Henry Cavill and his Man of Steel. I was a big fan of Man of Steel and of Cavill and the Snyderverse in general. After the Black Adam cameo, I was very much looking forward to seeing him return to the role, and then that was swiped from us. Thank you. And James Gunn announced he was rebooting the DC universe. At that point, a lot of people had knives out for this movie, for this version of Superman, due to that fact. I'm not one of those people. I'll admit my expectations were low for James Gunn's Superman, but I wasn't prejudging it. I was, and as I said, I'm happy to say my low expectations were more than surpassed. James Gunn's Superman movie is a perfectly enjoyable movie. Much like Zack Snyder's Man of Steel, James Gunn's Superman is launching the cinematic universe of which it's a part. I think Zack Snyder's universe, the Snyderverse, or the DCEU, and then this one I think they're just calling the DC Studios universe, or the DCU. I'm very curious to see where they go with this. I think James Gunn, especially in recent interviews, has made mention of the fact that they've not got their eye too much into the future. They're very much focusing on one movie at a time and making one good movie at a time. And, I don't think that's a bad thing. Starting filming movies when you don't have a script ready is probably not a good idea. So I think for the most part, at least for the individual movie to movie, case by case basis, I think that can only be a good thing. But for this movie, there is a few blink and you'll miss it cameos and Easter eggs that allude to what the wider DC universe, what the new DC universe might look like. I'm not going to discuss them here because that's a little bit spoilery, but they do exist. They are there. So kind of curious how that works. One cameo in particular, which I think I knew was going to be in, but still I'm very curious as to how they're going to reconcile the existence of that character in this universe. But I'm not going to say much more on that, but we can maybe chat about that in the comments below. So spoilers for the comments just in case. As I mentioned, younger audiences will probably enjoy this much more than they would enjoy or did enjoy Man of Steel. It's okay to like both Zack Snyder's Man of Steel and to like James Gunn's Superman. I like James Gunn's Superman and I like Zack Snyder's Man of Steel. It's okay to like them both. 7 out of 10 for James Gunn's Superman. It's a perfectly enjoyable movie. For context, my 11-year-old gave it an 8 out of 10, and my 8-year-old, who loved Crypto the Superdog, gave it an 8.9 out of 10, and the extra 0.9 points were added on because of Crypto. There is a mid-credits scene, or a mid-credits shot, and there is an end-credits scene. They're both fairly throwaway things, throwaway shots and throwaway scenes. They don't set up the next movie or have any kind of heavy dramatic context to them. They're just, funny little scenes. So if you're bursting for a pee, don't do yourself an injury. Just go and have a pee. You don't need to wait around for those scenes. And that's us. I'll put some Superman related videos at the side here, or here, and I'll catch you in the next video.